Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. Welcome to the LinkedIn Live Lunch Hour. I'm your host, Michael Goldberg, and today we got a special treat. I mean, this guy, he rocks. His partner rocks. So they do a podcast called the Chad and Cheese Podcast. You can find it on Apple or Spotify, wherever you are listening to your podcast. This is one of the top rated recruiting podcast, and it's not the all nicety and fun and flowers and rainbows and purple unicorns. Chad Sowash and Joel Cheeseman, hence Chad and Cheese, tell it like it is, right? And so I'm really excited to have Chad on. I've known Chad now for about 3 years. We do have one company in common that we did do some work. He worked there a lot longer, much longer than I did, but that's for another time. But I am super excited to have my guy, Chad Sowash. How's it? There he is.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
Another day in paradise.
It is. So you're in the Indianapolis area, right? If I remember correctly.
Yep, just south of Indy. Good old Midwest.
Good old Midwest. And so how is it? Is it just cold, like freezing up there, or what?
Yeah, it was freezing this morning. It's going to warm up a little bit today, but it should be colder. But I'm glad it's not.
Right. So it's all good. But we got a lot to talk about here, right? So today, Chad and I are going to be talking really about what does recruiting look like in 2021. And I was sharing with him, I had found this article by a LinkedIn writer, and I can certainly.
No bias.
What's that?
Said I'm sure there's no bias in the writing.
No bias. So a gentleman of Gregory Lewis, who works for LinkedIn, so we want to kind of talk about it here. I'll share my screen just for a second, just so you can kind of everybody can kind of get a sense of what we're talking about here. Besides looking at our two beautiful faces.
6 trends.
6 trends. Is that showing up right there?
Yep.
Whoops. All right. So there you go. So the 6 trends that'll shape 2021, right? And so I'll just give everybody a cap here. Look at there are 6 predictions. First off, Greg, when you're writing a blog, it should be odd numbers, not even numbers. Right? I'm just saying. At least that's what I've been told the LinkedIn algorithm likes.
Oh yeah.
You got to drink from your own fountain, right? So, but let's first off, before we jump into this, Chad, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you've done, because you've got a very interesting story.
Yeah, so now that you can see we're actually on LinkedIn, just go to LinkedIn and look up Chad Sowash. I'm the only one that's out there because I won't be able to encapsulate pretty much my entire career, but I did 20 years in the military, some active, some reserve duty. I was able to retire out of the reserves. During that time frame, I was actually with Monster before it was Monster. So I've been in this game since the early aughts. I've been actually 98. Launched Monster in 99, was with direct employers for a decade as one of the leaders there that created the National Labor Exchange, working with the federal government, state government, technology, being able to build technological infrastructure to deliver jobs down to the state workforces. Not to mention, we've also we able to do some crazy stuff around being able to use a top level domain name .jobs. I was the chief experience officer with Recruit Military. I built Ronstad's veteran hiring program, actually worked directly with Ford Motor Company on that. Then broke out, started my own gig, and the podcast just kind of came out of that. It was more of a branding mechanism. And since Joel, my pod partner, and myself, we don't report to anyone other than our wives. We're able to say whatever we want, however we want. And in HR, in recruiting, that's generally not embraced, and that's fine for us because, again, we don't report to anybody, and it was embraced. It was embraced by the old HR lady all the way up to the vendors and staffing companies and whatnot. So yeah, we've been lucky enough and very humbled that we've been able to grow listenership and be supported with sponsors as well, and obviously get a chance to be on the show, and appreciate you giving me a chance to get on and chat.
Absolutely. So and let's start with prediction number 2 is recruiting will help keep the business accountable on diversity. So as an expert, not just in diversity, but especially with your military background and your military hiring experience, what do you say to that prediction? I mean, does recruiting know how to really help and build diversity in companies or hire diverse candidates?
Well, and I think part of it was keep accountable, right? Yeah, accountable on diversity. Recruiting doesn't keep anybody accountable for anything. What we are is the sledgehammer, the screwdriver. We are the tool that business picks up to be able to do whatever it needs to do. So to be able to say that we're going to be the guardrails is totally, I don't know where Gregory gets this, but it's totally off. Especially when we're talking about hard issues. Recruiting, it has issues with easy stuff, let alone hard stuff. And this is one of the harder areas in being able to diversify an organization.
And I'm sure you've seen this, but if you look like out on LinkedIn Jobs or go to Indeed and type the word diversity, you're going to see at least 100 plus positions looking for diversity, equity, inclusion. Often either a chief officer or a director of TA dedicated to DEI. I get it and I appreciate it. And I think, it was interesting. I was watching last night. Don't laugh. I was watching I Am Woman, which is the story of, and I don't know if you remember Helen Reddy.
Yeah.
So, but that song came about during the Equal Rights Amendment. So how when the movie, the Equal Rights Amendment, to give women more say in the world. Mm-hmm. Do you know they introduced that and only I think 30 something states ratified that? But they couldn't get all 50 states, and it still hasn't become federal law. Now, yes, we have Title VII and stuff like that. But what was interesting is they said that bill it still today hasn't passed.
Yeah.
And the last kind of big play they made for that was in 1989 at a rally where her daughter was running some kind of some type of rally, and she talked her mom into singing who had retired, and to sing that as the national anthem for women. Where I'm going with this is we've been struggling with racism, dealing with equal rights for everyone for the last 50 plus years. Now we're all of a sudden saying, oh, it's time to hire diversity. Yeah. What does that do for a company, in your opinion, from a recruiting standpoint, from a talent attraction standpoint?
Well, there's a couple of things. First and foremost, we put a man on the moon in 1969, but yet we can't get companies diverse, and we can't figure out ways to make these things happen. The answer is we can when we truly believe in it, right? So first and foremost, that's the biggest key. If companies today aren't diverse, it's because they haven't believed in it, right? They might say that they want to hire veterans, or they want to hire individuals with disabilities, or people of color, or what have you. But what they say means nothing to me. It's what they actually do. It's all about the outcomes. So overall, I mean, the companies that we see who are putting their money where their mouth is. I remember at Direct Employers, I mean, we always focused on trying to ensure that we could get companies jobs in front of these different underrepresented communities, right? But mainly, I would hear most companies, Fortune 500, VPs of Fortune 500 companies come to me and say, Chad, where are the free resources that it's like, no, this is not, okay, so what we'll do is the free resources are what we call table stakes. What you need to do is build on top of that, spend money add resources. So I do believe that CDOs, I do believe that some of these individuals in these positions are necessary if they actually lead to outcomes. Also, if they also lead to transparency. We have companies that are out there today who, I mean, you saw some of the company pictures and it's nothing but white dudes, right?
Right.
We've got to be able to, we've got to be transparent about that, more transparent, and say, look, we know we have work to do. This is where our base level is. This is what our workforce composition is. If you go to Atlassian, I think it's atlassian.com/belonging. They have an amazing, this is how you start, right? They show the workforce composition, they show their vision, how they're going to get there, et cetera, et cetera. And we've also seen Jerome over at Smart Recruiters start to do the same type of thing. So I think it's all about not just what we're seeing happen from a word standpoint, it's all about action. And from my understanding, and again, this is just to call out Jerome and what they're doing over there around anti-racism. The last 2 leaders that they've actually announced have been Black females. And I believe the next 2 leaders, which means 4, are also going to be Black females. So they are, that's outcomes from a leadership standpoint. Then it starts to actually work its way down.
And that's at Smart Recruiters, you were saying? Now, yeah, I'm looking at this at Lacey, and it's the title page is Building Equitable, Balanced Teams and a Sense of Belonging. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah. They have 5,000 employees worldwide. I mean, they're all over the world. Now, they can only report certain points of data because throughout the world, they're not allowed to actually do that. It's against the law. So they provide as much transparency as they possibly can, and they go deeply into it. So I think if there's a company who truly wants to be diverse and they need that first step, this is a great first step. And you'll see the actual numbers that they
right here. Can you see it?
Yeah, they're not amazing numbers, but guess what? This is what they have to build on, and they're being transparent. And
Right.
if you're an employee or if you're an individual who wants to come work there, this means so much.
Yeah. I mean, to me, and not only did they show the bigger number, but they said, look, we showed an increase from 1.9 to 2.6%.
Scroll down.
Right.
Scroll down even more. They show departmental.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is where a company needs to start. And I also talked to the CEO over at Circa, circaworks.com. They were talking, and they're a provider of diversity, kind of like outreach and those types of things. And we had him on the show, and I challenged him on the show and said, Patrick, I don't believe you until you start being transparent with us. And he said, what do you mean? And I showed him the Atlassian page, and they started creating their own page on Circa that started providing this workforce composition from Circa. So again, I think it's us, the people who've been in this area, in this industry for as long as we have. It's our job to get off the damn sideline and start challenging people to do. We always talk about doing the right thing. Well, challenge that and make sure that it actually happens, and hold their feet to the fire.
Absolutely. And we can talk about this all day, right? So go check out Atlassian .com/belonging. If you want to also put the link in on the replay in the comments. So, and if you guys have questions for Chad or myself, feel free to ask them in the comments. Just type them in. We'll see them. We'll talk about it. But let's go to another prediction. So prediction number 1, recruiting will hire less, build and borrow more. And so just kind of reading down on what they were talking about, it says, since the onset of COVID-19, internal mobility has increased by nearly 20% year over year. One of the things that, and this is a good, if I may for just a minute, I have a client that I started with this year. They're out of Columbus, Ohio, healthcare firm. And they said, Michael, we want you to take your your job seeking advice and your career coaching advice. And we want you to train our employees how to be better prepared for internal interviews. And so for next year, so we did the pilot. It was very successful. I won't see, I'll see metrics here probably in the next quarter, because obviously they take the course and then they're going to apply for internal jobs.
Right.
But I've got eight programs signed up with the same company. So, but basically it's just focusing on, how to have a good resume for an internal position, how to build your networks inside the organization, how to reach out to people for informational interviews, even within the company. And so, this is where I'm going to hang my hat. I love to see this stat. What's your thought on recruiting will hire less and build and borrow more, meaning they'll rely more on internal mobility? What's your prediction on that? Because there's some things that we were talking about before we went on.
Well, first off, I think it's about time. I think one of the issues that we have is retention, and that's not all of recruiting's. I mean, that's really not in recruiting's kind of like job description per se. But I think the borrowing piece starts to think of more of a holistic experience for an individual, for a human being who's coming to actually work for a brand. You're not just thinking about the front end. It's like, oh, they had a great candidate experience, then they come in and have the crappiest work experience, a day-to-day job experience ever. I think it's more holistic. In being able to borrow. I mean, I don't know if that's really borrowing, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that we were worrying about different aspects of experience instead of the holistic experience. We need to do that more no matter what. And we can do that, to an extent on front end, middle, and during the back end with tech. I think we've taken way too long in being able to adopt tech that helps us scale, touch, and engage candidates, individuals going through interviews, and then also our employees for internal mobility. I mean, there are great platforms that are out there today that can help us keep our employees engaged. And if we retain them, we don't have to go hire more people.
What are some of the tools that help keep employees engaged?
Well, there are a bunch of IM platforms. One of them is Real Links. They are also a employee referral platform. They also have an internal mobility piece to it as well. But there are a ton of them that are actually out there, and most of them are actually baked into applicant tracking systems, either through partnership or they're a part of the system in itself. So, I mean, whether it's part of the tracking HCM piece or it's just a point solution, I mean, there are plenty that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, so I appreciate that. I think, the one thing that I thought was kind of genius is there's no companies like this one particular client should probably follow suit, right? Because they're setting their employees up for success in the future. Maybe of larger companies that do it. This is probably a small to medium size company. Do you know of larger companies that have formalized internal mobility programs, or is?
So I think this is the most interesting in the way, and I always, because I'm military, I always go back to the U.S. military, and this is what the military does. Mm-hmm. The military itself, and I think if we step back as corporations and we start to think outside of the box and take a look at leading organizations, whether they're like us or not like us, are there little pieces that we could actually take and help with our own experience for our employees, for our own organization, so on and so forth. So I take a look at the U.S. military, and in the U.S. military, to be able to be promoted, I mean, that's the whole gig, right? I mean, you're doing the job, you want to do your best job. During that time frame, you're going through schools, and as you're going through schools, you're being put up for promotion, right? So I mean, I've never been through so much school in my life. It was when I was in the military. I went through, 4 different leadership schools, drill sergeant school, instructor school. I mean, all these different schools, because we're constantly training. That's the thing that I believe companies really need to incorporate. They need to incorporate this constant learning effect, right? And it's not just about, hey, you're going to take this course and here's a certification, but there are these different things that you can do within the organization itself. We used to do it. We called company level trainings, where you just were in your day-to-day and you did your trainings, right? And that would keep you sharp on what you were doing, and also new tactics and new things that you could do to be better at your job. But then there are much level brigade. I mean, they're just bigger opportunities to actually go to schools, get certifications, those types of things. So if you take a look at an organization like the U.S. military and really just take your ideals about what the military is versus what a corporation is, they have a structure that is focused on retention, right? And that is also predicated on promotion as well. So, and I mean, they're probably one of the most diverse organizations in the world.
They are. All right. So here's a eye-opening prediction. You ready?
Yeah.
You might want to be sitting down. Virtual recruiting is here to stay. No shit.
Yeah. We'll just move on from that one.
Yeah. Okay. This one's interesting. Come on, Greg. Recruiters will lead the transition to remote work.
And again, this is not me being mean to recruiters, but recruiters don't lead anything, right? They are our tool. They are a very, very powerful tool to do what to recruit, to source, to do some of the things that we need to get done, but they are not going to lead us in any way, especially if it comes to something like this, which is automation, right? They use personal automation. There's no question. And many of the best recruiters that are out there today have their finger on automation because they know it helps them get to the candidate much faster than anybody else. And that's where their focus is. Now, to be able to operationalize something like that, that's not something that they're going to do for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, and what he's talking about is on workforce planning. So let's talk about workforce planning, right? Recruiters have been screaming from the rooftops, workforce planning, but not many companies, especially on the smaller side, like to do workforce planning, because until they want to know, companies are more reactive. Hey, we get a new project, let's staff up to that new project. Do you think workforce planning could work?
Oh, I definitely think it could work. It's all about having a plan in place and executing on that plan. Now, again, going back to military, you make a plan, but things are going to change. So how do we pivot out of certain things to be able to go to where we need to go from? We don't just have one end in mind, right? Or we do, but we have different ways to actually get there. That's the thing. And I really believe bringing recruiters into the room to have those and have them participate in workforce planning. It's not a bad thing. I don't mean all your recruiters, but have some of your lead recruiters there so that they can help you understand the day-to-day in the trenches pieces. Mm-hmm. That's where I think from a strategic standpoint, we start talking about strategy, but we don't know how that's going to be delivered and executed. We have to understand the strategic piece needs to go through execution phases, right? You have to operationalize it. That's what it is. If you don't understand how the trenches actually work, then you have to bring the trenches into the strategy so that you can truly understand. I believe we've lost that in most cases when we start talking about this level of strategy. You can't build a strategy without understanding the actual tactics to implement.
Do you think that that's what recruiting teams are missing? Is this they can't come out of they want to move into the strategic mode, but they just can't because they're I don't know how to even finish that sentence without being totally mean, but You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, is it possible that because that's not a prediction he lists here. The only other thing he says about recruiting is that recruiters will build new skills to align with the business. Okay, what skills are those? And why aren't recruiters already have that? I'm a big proponent, and you and I have talked about this offline, that recruiters need to immerse themselves into the business and learn exactly what the business does, how each department aligns with the strategic goals of what they're trying to accomplish overall. And they just don't. They just figure they'll come in and they're just a computer machine where they're just sitting there looking at candidates and not really being proactive, not building pipelines. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, hell, Michael, I mean, most talent acquisition professionals, VPs or what have you, they don't understand that in themselves, right? They might understand the high level of it, but the problem that we have in talent acquisition and recruiting is that we don't actually take the market power that we have. No company exists today, no company, without the people who create the product, deliver the services, and do everything on the day-to-day that's necessary, right? The human component, the talent component, nobody exists without us, right? We are the heart of the engine of every organization that's out there. And the problem is we have been turned into this lackey where people throw stuff at us and say, I need this, I need that. We need to be a part of the bigger conversations. The problem the reason why we're not a part of the bigger conversations is because we're talking about elements of our world, like, cost per hire, right? Or time to hire, that CEOs don't care about, that COOs don't care about. We need to be talking we need to talk their language, right? Now, it matters to us, totally get it. But we have to understand that we need to talk about impact to business bottom line, okay? When we're doing that and we're demonstrating that, hey, this engineer position has gone unfilled for X amount of days, that has cost the organization X amount of dollars. And if we don't know that, if we're talent acquisition leaders and we don't know what a major position opening, right, what that costs our organization on a daily basis, and we can't articulate that to the C-suite, we do not deserve to have the position that we are in. We should get the hell out. We have to be more a part of the business conversation, not the go find me people conversation, right? So overall, I think I agree 100%. But if we don't start at the top with talent acquisition leaders having those discussions, I know some of them that do, and they are astounding. But they are one of maybe 6 that I know.
Absolutely. So I'm going to flash some comments here. Jeff Settles, thanks for tuning in. He goes, love it. Be curious, be a lifelong learner. Chandra Turner, she's planning to become a lifelong learner. You should always be a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
This one kind of made me laugh when we were talking about recruiting being strategic. So there you go. That sums it up right there. Yep. So, basically, and then the other prediction, which we'll just kind of touch upon because I want to get your thoughts on what are the real predictions. It says your employer brand will hinge on empathy and actions. Well, when you look at it, he's talking about budgets and speaking on current events and engaging candidates more. Shit, haven't we supposed to have been doing this for like the last 10 years? I mean, isn't this a prediction a little late to the party? I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I think the problem is that people don't understand what their brand actually means. And again, it goes back to, I'm going to continue to beat this dead horse. It goes back to, let's say, for instance, the individual in talent acquisition that doesn't understand that the experience that this candidate is having could prospectively, if it's a bad experience or good experience, it's going to affect your bottom line. The easiest way to say is, let's say, for instance, you're a product company, and that individual is not going to buy your product anymore, or who knows? And that's just one out of millions that could prospectively negatively impact your bottom line, right? So that in itself is just really a microcosm of the bigger issue overall when it comes to brand.
Yeah, more companies I have seen have started to hire employer brand folks, which is great. But I think a part of that brand, and you've seen my post on candidate experience, right? It's crap, and it became worse this year than it ever has been. I think that's the piece that people are missing out, because just when I do my post or when I'm talking to candidates out there, they go, once I'm hired, I'm going to share with you all the stories of my bad experience. I'm like, give it to me now. Let me call those companies and try to help them, right? Yeah. So what is your take on the candidate experience now and even before? Is it always going to suck?
I hope not. But here's the thing, and I want to be able to throw this out to talent acquisition professionals. As Joel and I were lucky enough to actually talk to a huge room of CMOs and brand leaders, right? They had no clue about the candidate experience and how bad it was. We had Intel and Yeti on stage with us, some pretty big names. Mm-hmm. We were talking to the CMO from or the VP of marketing from Yeti, and we had a couple of talent acquisition stalwarts from Intel, and everybody in the room was like, oh my God, because they're thinking about they're impacting my brand, right? So I think we have to understand once again, and there's a common theme here, how we impact the bigger business so that we can have bigger discussions, and again, we're the heart and soul of every organization, period. If we don't start acting like it, we're going to be relegated to the kids' table from here to eternity.
Yeah, Thanksgiving. Here you go. Or what is it, Table 9 or Table 13 or something like that, whatever that movie was. Here's so in the 5-7 minutes we got left. Yeah. I want to ask you, and I appreciate your insight on that. And the last thing I'll say about that is what people don't realize, and you've said this, is they don't realize that the candidate experience brand, the employment brand,
is the
master brand. It's all tied together. So Talent Board does a good job. Kevin Grossman's group, who I just think the world of, they have this. It's called it's a calculator, and essentially, if you hire 100 employees, and let's say the average product sell on yours is $100. Let's just say it's $100. Uh-huh. You're affecting about 99,000 people over the course of a year, and you could possibly lose out on, I think the number was crazy, like $1.7 million worth of lost business out the door. And for a small company, that's real money. For a medium-sized company, maybe not so much. But when you start putting that if I had a bad experience, and I'll give you a great example. I had interviewed last year with this company it went on for 6 months. Thought the job was in the bag, no problem. They'd start making changes, start pushing out, delaying. You know what? I took my business elsewhere to their direct competitor to have them work, and it was like $750 after insurance of what my out-of-pocket was. Multiply that by 99,000, and how much was walking out the door. So that's the last thing I'll say, right? Yeah. So, all right. So, what, in your opinion, are the top recruiting issues outside of Greg? Thank you, Greg. Bless you. Good luck. What give me Chad's top recruiting predictions for this year?
Yeah, there's no question. If you are a recruiter and you're listening to me, I have my main prediction for you, or the thing that you should be doing in 2021 is embracing technology to be able to focus on scale. Okay, because what we've seen is obviously the recession, pretty much, of recruiting and whatnot, because again, everybody's cutting back, everybody's waiting for things to turn. When that switch does flip, and we hope it's sooner rather than later, when that switch does flip, we have to be ready to scale. And as recruiters, we have to be able to not just be ready to scale, but we have to be ready to get to those best in class candidates as soon as humanly possible, so that we're not competing with our competitors, right? Who knows who's going to scale and when? So we have to be ready. So now, not in 2021, but now, we should already be having those process conversations and technology conversations on talking about scale. As we talk about anything from a strategic standpoint, everything starts in the trenches. What you guys do on a daily basis is the most amazing thing, because you are touching these people and you are helping them find, hopefully, the career that they stay in for the rest of their lives. So to be able to ensure that everybody has a great experience, you as a single human being can't do that. We know that. We need technology to be able to help us through that.
Yeah, there's so many tools out there now that are being able to that help us on the automation tool.
Yeah.
I think people they want to do it, but I think sometimes they don't know how to present it. Like, to me, if I'm the recruiting leader, and I'm pretty sure you would do the same thing, you're writing a business. It's common sense. You write a business case, say, here's what will benefit us if we get it. Here's the time it will save us. These are direct dollars to the bottom line that I'm saving you by automating stuff.
Yeah.
And conversely, if we don't get it, I'll end up spending half my time in administration land, and I don't want to be there. And that's not why you hired me. It's not why you pay me $80, $90, $100, $120, $150,000 a year to go out and find people.
Yep. And that's why talent acquisition professionals need to know exactly what those costs are, and their team should know it as well. And you should be grilling your team on that. What's the cost? Where are we at? I mean, this has to be a business dollars and cents conversation. But at the end of this, I don't want to miss, this is about human beings and changing people's lives, right? And if we're not doing it to do that, then find something else to do. Because if you're doing this for the money, this is not for you. Go sell something.
Right. Well, yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. It's a good way to kind of wrap things up here. It's all about service and service delivery, right? So I came up through the ranks of Marriott. You came in the military, where you're helping your fellow brother or sister in combat, right? You're going to take care of them and make sure, and especially you were a drill sergeant, right?
Yeah.
I'm scared of you. So I'm kidding. So, right, that's what, as the drill instructor, isn't that what you instructed? You worry about your ass, but you're not the most important. You need to be worrying about what's going on around you, and if anybody around you needs help. And so as recruiters, we need to be in the business. We need to be a part of meetings. I mean, we can talk about this all day, right? We know what we have to do. Yeah. It's, what do you do to kind of push them over the ledge to say, dude or lady, let's go. What's holding you back? Any suggestions there?
Yeah, I think, especially as we're working remote, we need to do everything that we possibly can to build that camaraderie within our teams. It's not as easy when we're not at the water cooler. If we can have those calls and we can talk the talk that we need to be able to build out each other up, right? Because we're building the team up. And that's the thing in the military that we see that we don't see in corporate America. In corporate America, it's all about individual statistics, right? And building that person up. If we're building the team up, we're all going to rise together, right? And I think that's the best way to think of this. Again, if you're doing the work on a daily basis, it's because you care about people. And if you're caring about somebody who you don't even know, the candidate, why wouldn't you care about the people around you that you work with every day, right?
Exactly. So, it's amazing how time just flies when and plus, but you're such a great guest, and you're so easy to talk with about this stuff. And I mean, we get it. Now, look, everybody out there on the replay or that's watching live now, and we had a nice little spike. You couldn't see it on this, but in LinkedIn we had a decent watching here. Nice. You need to add the Chad and Cheese Show. Shout out to Joel Cheeseman. Hello, sir. And Basically, you need to go subscribe to their podcast on Apple, Spotify, whatever you're listening on, and take a listen. When do you guys normally push your stuff out?
We put out 2 to 3 podcasts a week, but definitely every Friday. That's our religious. So that's Wednesdays, Fridays are generally religious.
All right. Connect with Chad on LinkedIn. Hit him up. The guy's a genius. He knows what he's doing. He actually gives a shit about recruiting. And I put him he's in my top 5.
You're making me tear up, Michael. Stop.
Oh, sweetheart, it's all right. But hey, man, appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
Industry and what you do today. And, I wish you nothing but the best and happy holidays. And you and I need to connect. And of course, now I need to be a guest on the Chad and She Show.
Amen, brother. I appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for watching as well.
Yes, thanks everybody, and going ahead and end this broadcast. Yes, we'll be on, I believe, next week. So stay tuned and enjoy the rest of your week.
Later.